Hey, what's up, you amazing hackers? Hope you're all doing well today. Welcome back to the channel. I have the amazing Mr. I am Jacoby with me today. Tatted up, skydiving, sniper trained, army infantryman, ethical hacker. What can't you do? Can you please introduce yourself, sir?
Yeah. What's up, guys? I am Jacoby. I do a lot of payload development for a bunch of different HID attack vector devices, or basically any of the Hack 5 devices is what it really comes down to. That's just kind of my area where I like to play around. I guess where people have kind of gotten to know me recently.
I love that stuff. You've probably recognized this. Everybody who's watching probably recognizes this. This isn't the normal USB stick, is it?
No, absolutely not. So that is the USB rubber ducky. And so I've got mine right here as well, which might disappear every once in a while. So this is one of the devices that I was telling you about. So the rubber ducky is a HID attack device. What this does is it replicates a keyboard, and you can give it predefined scripts that it will type out at lightning fast speeds whenever you plug it into the computer or you send it a different kind of trigger, whatever that may be. And it's just for executing scripts on a system at lightning speeds. We often exploit going through the run box just to pull down a PowerShell script and execute it.
That's awesome. I love this thing. There are so many different payloads for it, of course. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey into the world of rubber ducky scripting and what sparked your interest?
So that's actually been a while. So the first time I think that I saw the rubber ducky was probably back in, like, I want to say 2011, maybe or between 2010 and 2012. It's kind of hard. Those years blur together a little bit. But yeah, I was actually in the last, I want to say it was in the last year of being in the military. And I saw Hack 5 on YouTube. I'd kind of always messed around before, kind of messed around with either PowerShell or Batch. That was something that I just always enjoyed. And seeing what he was, Darren, that is, what he was doing with the rubber ducky, just kind of, I don't know, like there's always that thing that happens to you when you're a kid that just like sparks this crazy interest. It was magic for me when I was really young. But it was that same feeling again, like when I did magic when I was younger. I often tell people hacking feels like digital magic. You just kind of plug in this device and it does these, what people perceive to be magic on their screen. And, it elicits the same reaction from them. And I've always just fed off that.
Yeah, that's true. I love that reaction as well. When you show them a specific exploit and their face goes, whoa, that's amazing.
Yeah. The feeling in your soul that you're like, oh, yeah, I know I did that. Yeah, it's a good feeling. It's a good feeling.
As one of the top creators of rubber ducky scripts, what would you say sets your work apart from others in this field?
I think one of the big things I think people notice right away that get complimented on is my READMEs, like my documentation. So I don't want to, there's a decent amount of scripts that are really, really good that get submitted, but they don't exactly have the best documentation. So for someone like me who is proficient in, PowerShell and these payloads, I can look at it and determine what it does and how to use it properly. But that's not always the case for a lot of the newer people who are coming in and trying to learn. So I think one of the big things that did set me apart at the beginning and got people interested in my payloads was the fact that it was so easy to follow along, just the way that I broke them down specifically. But then I guess second to that is just the creativity behind a lot of my payloads. I do put a lot of effort into not just trying to replicate or slightly change existing payloads. For a long time, I actually didn't even look at the other payloads that were in there just because I didn't want it to shape like my thought pattern of like, how I was going to come up with payloads. So learning by yourself is a big thing. I don't want to say reference is bad, but for me, I think it was important to like shape your own start of the path, kind of get pointed in your own direction, and then you can use reference to go further down that path. So I think that was something that was big for me because, again, the readmes and creativity are probably the two big compliments that I get on my work.
I have seen your readmes and they are quite incredible. If you guys don't know, this repositories and all of his social media will be in the description below as well, of course. Talking about your payloads, Jacoby, can you tell us a little bit about what your favorite payloads are that you've written yourself?
Okay, so there's been a lot at this point, and my favorites definitely changed in different stages. I will say that my number one favorite payload that I've ever made, and probably will be, this is one I want to continue to update. I need to do a big update on it, actually, to be completely honest with you. But the payload is acid burn. So that was actually the very first payload that I submitted to Hack5, and it won. Hack5 does monthly awards for ones that it picks out. So my first one I submitted actually won an award, and so I made Advanced Recon first, and what Advanced Recon does is it goes through your system and it finds everything about you. It finds the email associated with the Microsoft account, your name, your Wi-Fi passwords, everything about your system, your processor, your RAM, just everything you can imagine about your system, and it sends it over to me. So that is the kind of the practical version. And then I went through and made Acid Burn. And so what Acid Burn did is it took all that information and then it incorporated Sappy Speak, which is the Windows text to speech. And it would take all that information and it roasts you, basically. It just if it finds out that you have let it find out that you only have 4 gigs of RAM, right? It just talks shit. You know what I'm saying? It finds out what email you have, right? Let it find out that you're using Yahoo or something, right? It'll just roast you. So it just kind of goes through all of that different information and just uses it to talk shit. So that one's my favorite just because it's one that I'm going to continue to build. I want to make, because you can customize the responses. You can pull it down yourself and customize the responses, but I want to make there to be more levels of responses, like more logic. Like if you have, only 4 gigs of RAM and, your Wi-Fi password is only 4 characters long or some crazy thing like that. Because that's something else it does. It's like, oh, your Wi-Fi password, really, it's 7 characters. There's no numbers in it. You set it 2 years ago and you wonder how I got here. It's like things like that. So I just want to continue to add levels to it, add more logic to it, and if we can make the insults better, you know what I mean? But I just I love that one. It's just violently 90s, and just funny.
That's awesome. I love it. I love it. Just so I'm completely unaware, by the way, but just so I know, Acid Burn for the OMG, did you also write that?
What was that?
Acid Burn for the OMG cable.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So any of the payloads that I submit over to Hack5, I do try to convert them to all the different devices. So yeah, so there is a version of Acid Burn that works on the Bash Bunny, right? Because the Bash Bunny has its own storage. So you don't have to pull Acid Burn down from a website. You can pull it directly from the Bash Bunny. So the execution is a little different. And then when you pull stuff from the computer, you can put it on the Bash Bunny. So like, for example, Advanced Recon, it goes to the Bash Bunny. But I do rewrite all of mine so it'll work on like the rubber ducky, or like I have the OMG plug right here, or the cables. Now I'm redoing all my rubber ducky ones because these have, V3 just came out. So there's all new logic that makes it insane. So I'm going to be rewriting all my Hack5 ones to work on the rubber ducky. Before, these used to be the exact same. They're not anymore. And then I would just have to do the Bash Bunny, which is a little bit different. But long story short, though, yes, all of my payloads will be available on all of the Hack5 devices that could possibly use them.
Can you walk us through the process of developing a script for a rubber ducky? Like, what's it like? What do you go through? How do you start?
So, The answer to that has obviously changed as I've gone through the process of getting better at it myself, you know? So I guess it would probably be a different answer between like how I began and like what I'm doing now, just because the level of knowledge is different, you know? But if you wanted one generalized kind of blanket answer though, the answer is just blanket curiosity. That's really what it comes down to. You know, there's times that you know, we were talking about this before the call, but you know, like I have pretty bad ADHD, so I have to do like I always had to keep my mind busy. So it's not often that I can just watch a show on Netflix. I also have to be doing something on the other screen. So like while I'm watching a show on Netflix on the other screen, I'll be digging through either the registry, right? Or I'll be digging through the .NET framework in PowerShell, which both of those are just like, you know, expansive, like just forever, you know? So I'll just dig through there for a while until I see something that looks interesting. Like I found a speech recognizer module recently, which is the speech to text function, which you're not supposed to have access to because it's supposed to be in the accessibility tool, which they got rid of access to because we were putting it on the outside on the login screen, if you guys remember. So they made it so you don't have the file path to it anymore. But I went and found that inside of the .NET framework and just got direct access to it. So spoiler alert, my next video is going to be on something called the voice logger. It's kind of like a key logger. I won't say more than that, but yeah, I got the idea for that just because I was rummaging through the registry. So it really comes down to just curiosity. Between going through those two things, every time you see something you don't know what it is, Google it and then be like, how can I use this? And then you're like, okay, I know how I can use this. Now take a step back and be like, okay, well, how can I use this as a hacker who's trying to implement this as some sort of rubber ducky script? And it's the process of going through each of those individual items as you discovering them and then playing it back through the mindset of someone who's developing with it. And you know, you'd be surprised. You know, you find something like that, you speech synthesizer module, like what can I do with this? Okay, so no, no more spoilers. I apologize. I almost went too far. But yeah, you get the point though. Just be curious.
I love it. I love it. It's sort of like how you can, for example, find a new cross-site scripting. You go through the RFCs of how HTML is interpreted by different browsers, and through some weird ambiguity, you can find some kind of
Exactly. You keep poking, and it's going to make a hole somewhere. And if you can make a hole, you know, you can make a you know, a crater.
Can you tell me how you stay up to date with latest developments in rubber ducky scripting? Because as you said, it doesn't develop over the years. Is there some kind of source you follow?
So for me, starting off, it was just constantly staying up to date with the channel. And you know, back then I was looking at payloads a little bit more. This is back when it was first getting started, when I was like learning what all of it was anyways in the first place. Yeah, so again, yeah, at the beginning, that's just a lot of what it was. To be honest, now today, I guess I could say a year ago would be different than now. So a year ago, again, what it came down to was there's two different ways to make Ducky script, right? So you can either do keystroke injection or you can write, you know, a PowerShell script, right? So keystroke injection, you'd open the PowerShell window, type it out. Whereas the other way is you can open up the run box, invoke web request, pull a script down, and then execute it. So at that point, you know, you just need one line of Ducky script to pull it down. The rest of it is what can you do with PowerShell. So me keeping up to date was being, you know, more adept at PowerShell. Now, fast forward today, it's getting to be a little bit more complex because something like Ducky Script v3 came out, which has like just absolutely insane functionality. And they're adding stuff to it constantly. Like you have to get Payload Studio, and then you get beta access, and you get access to, you know, some of the newer commands and whatever not. But I can say that fortunately, because, you know, if you guys didn't know, I won Hacker of the Year last year with Hack 5. So fortunately, it still blows my mind to this day, but I get to talk to, like, Corbin, Darren, basically MG, the whole dev team, whenever I like. And I'm in a position now where they sometimes even bounce ideas off of me. So fortunately, again, I'm just in a position where I'm more a part of the community, and just have more access to information and other people who are working with the same concepts, as opposed to before, when I used to work alone, when I was just learning by myself, which, by the way, I don't recommend. If any of you guys are listening to this, you don't have to reach a certain level before you like earn the right to reach out to someone, right? I did that for a long time. I was like, no, I have to be good enough to reach out and talk. Negative. You learn so much faster with other people. Just reach out. We got so many, and I'm not gonna lie, there are gatekeepers, but we got so many cool people. Just reach out.
Definitely, and there will always be gatekeepers, but you can be discouraged by them. Of course, community is a huge part of every single learning.
We outnumber them. Just so you know.
Definitely, totally agree. I love that saying. I'm gonna remember that. We outnumber them. That's an awesome saying.
We do.
It is a big part of learning, of course, community, and like Jacoby said as well, don't hesitate to reach out. The only problem that I've always had is that who do you reach out to? Of course, do you reach out to people who have a lot more experience than you? Because there I find that the learning curve is a lot harder to get. Like if they explain something to me, they explain it in a way that they think is simple, but for me, it's still very complicated. So.
Exactly. When you get really good at something, sometimes you forget, like, how complex it is. Like, it becomes so common knowledge to you. That's the thing with helping new people, is you have to learn to train your brain to be able to interact with those people, to not be using common terminology that you're used to using with your peers just casually. That actually takes a good amount of effort.
Very much so, but here is a little bit of motivation for everybody who's watching. I don't know about you, but I was a former drug addict, heavy into fucking cocaine and all the hard drugs I could get my hands on. With hard work and dedication, if you put yourself towards it, and we've been talking about this before the meeting as well a little bit, if you put your mind to it, there's nothing you can't reach. It's incredible.
That's something we were talking about before this. Literally, you just got to try harder than everybody around you. Not everybody around you tries as hard as they can. And when you realize that, you try as hard as you can, and you're trying harder than them, and you just start winning.
Yep, and just never forget that these people are also human. They're human just like you. If they can do it, you can too. Yeah, I love talking about motivation, of course, because I've been often demotivated. Have you ever had to deal with imposter syndrome before?
Oh, I'm like everybody knows in like my Discord, like I have it bad, like bad, like crushing on a daily basis. It's been especially hard recently just because of, and this sounds crazy, but all the good things that have happened, like being featured on the Linus Tech Tip channel 3 times, right? It doesn't even feel real. Like, it just doesn't even feel real. It's like one of the greatest things that's ever happened to me, and I haven't actually really felt it yet. Because, my imposter syndrome is, I imagine if any of you guys have it, you know all the horrible things that go through your head. You did nothing to deserve this. You tricked everybody. All the craziness. And something I learned is, I think it's almost everybody in cyber. I'm not even gonna lie. To some degree, I will say that I'm probably one of the not greater cases of it, but I think to some degree almost everybody has it, especially because a lot of the stuff, it hits in a really weird way. Like, I'm finally getting like a certain level of recognition and this appreciation. It's so cool, but it's really weird to me because nothing's changed. I'm still at the same desk. It's the same monitors in front of me. I'm doing the exact same stuff I do every single day. It's just cool because there's more people saying, hey, I appreciate you. But nothing feels different.
Let me just put it that way. You'd be amazed of how many amazing things happen if you just show up. Can you please share us a particularly challenging rubber ducky script that you've been struggling with for days, weeks, months? I think we all know the struggle where we're stuck on something forever.
Oh my God. There's a few of them. There's a few. I mean, so my UAC bypass that I've been using for like 7 years, it just got patched like 4 months ago.
Oh,
So that broke my heart. That's one I've been sharing with everybody. So I've been, working on new ones on the side forever. And they're just so incredibly difficult because it's so tedious. It's going through individual DLLs a lot of the time, or just God, like I knew it was going to get burned. Like as soon as my payload started picking up, I'm like, oh God, it's gone. You know what I mean? So uh, this whole time I've basically been working to try to get some more backup ones that will be consistent. And the thing is at the end of the day, I realized that no matter what, once I post them, they're gonna get burned. At least the software ones. So I'll say that software ones are definitely the one that is I've been working on the longest. But fortunately, I came up with a hardware one that works specifically with these devices that is undetectable and can never be patched. I'll be sharing that one shortly. We actually had to make it work. We had to build a whole website, which might not make sense, but you'll see whenever I share it. I know that's confusing, but I have a hardware UAC bypass that will forever be undetectable and cannot be patched, period, ever. There's nothing they can do. Again, that means you have to use one of these devices. The difference is with the old UAC bypass, you could send that through an email or something, right? You cannot do that with this UAC bypass. So again, this will be for devices, so limited scope, but the trade-off is it can never be patched. It is a UAC bypass, unbreakable. But
that
yeah,
sounds amazing.
I've spent, years just constantly, trying to look for new methods of that. It just, yeah. So UAC bypass.
Yeah, of course. And I think we all spend like a stupid example I can give from my world is, of course, we have completely different worlds of expertise, but we for client-side template injections for Angular are constantly looking for new sandbox escapes. And by the time we found a sandbox escape, they brought out a new version and we're back to
Yep.
scratch.
Okay, that couldn't be a more perfect equivalent of a comparison though. Yeah, sandbox escape, basically the same thing.
If I take a USB stick from my coworker, how can I be safe from this? Can I protect myself from it even? I've been thinking about running this in a sandbox, for example, where every single stick I plug in runs in a sandbox. And I've
um,
noticed this strange thing with Mac as well, because I'm a Mac fag, yeah, sue me. But when you put it into a MacBook, it asks for keyboard setup assistant. And I don't know if you can craft a specific rubber ducky because it's just a bash. What am I saying? A bat script, right? A rubber ducky ish. It's bat script ish. Can you also tell it to just control that keyboard interface, or is that like something Mac specifically has?
so basically what Mac tried to do to, break down on, these kind of attacks or malicious USBs or whatever it is to make it so if the device isn't recognized with a certain VID or PID, then it'll flag and you'll get that notification. But on different devices, like rubber ducky, OMG cable, I'm not sure if the flipper can. I think it depends on what firmware you're running on it, but you can change those values on those, so you can make it appear as a Mac keyboard, so you can get past that.
Just a stupid question because I've never done this because this is expensive gear for me. Can I just take off the case, pop off the case, or is it like glued together? Or
Oh, if you
I
wanted
don't.
to peek inside,
Yeah,
so
where?
I didn't actually pop this particular one apart. Typically you always could. That's not the same with the OMG cables. Um, you cannot just pop those apart. So I haven't actually tried to pop this one apart yet.
Yeah, but if you look at the OMG cable as well, that thing is magical how well it's put together. I don't know if they took like a real iPhone cable and they ripped it apart and they put new hardware in or what, but it's
Yeah, they're absolutely brilliant, but it's epoxy sealed the inside of it.
okay.
So
So that's why.
it protects all the circuits. So, your cables will always survive, your plug will always survive. Yeah, you can't pull that apart. It's epoxy sealed on the inside.
Yeah, but it's interesting. I've always wanted to peek into the inside of my rubber ducky to see where that button is specifically that you have to hit, because I don't know why, but I keep fucking. I'm like a moron. Click, click.
Oh, wait a minute. Wait a minute. No, absolutely. Yeah, no, absolutely. You can take it apart. I apologize. Yeah, because on this one specifically, so what you do is when you take it apart, you'll put they give you a little square sticker thing, and you take two of those stickers, these little, I think they were circle or little square stickers, and you put it on top of the button. That made the button like 2 millimeters taller, and that makes it so it's able to be pushed like really easily.
Gotcha.
But
Yeah,
it
yeah.
was, oh yeah, so you got that little sticker pad right there on there. There should be like either two small squares or something.
Yep. These ones or no? Sorry, it's like these little round things. You can't really see them,
Oh
but it's
yeah, yeah, yeah.
round.
That's what they are. That's right. They're the little teardrop things or whatever. That's what it was. They were hidden on there. That's correct. Yeah, those little round ones on there. If you take it apart, you put two of those. There should be two of them. You put those two little stickers on the button,
For you.
and then put the case back together, and it makes it so the button pushing is optional in case you don't want someone to accidentally push it. You
Yeah,
can
yeah,
set it
gotcha.
up or you can take it apart.
Yeah, sorry to put you on the spot there, but I just always found these
Oh yeah,
things
yeah. No, no,
intriguing
no.
too.
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
so
Actually,
you guys
I
know,
forgot about that. Yeah, I set it up the very first day I got it, and I forgot that I did that.
can
Yeah, yeah.
you can you tell me if I get this in the mail, what the hell do I do with it? Because if I plug it in, it doesn't work, right? Or else,
So it depends on if you're referring to the rubber ducky or like the OMG products.
yeah, the rubber ducky. Sorry,
Yeah.
yes, sorry.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. So for the OMG products, just for the sake of saying, they also sell the malicious cable detector. So you can plug cables or like a USB or whatever into it, and it works by measuring power draw, I believe, if I remember correctly when I talked to him. So it can detect it's if the device or cable or whatever else is doing something a little extra.
Like a little
For Yeah, for something like the rubber ducky, however, it would just be a matter of running it in an isolated sandbox. Like that's what I would, always do. Um, because the rubber ducky, I mean, the OMG cables can be set the same, but the payloads are set to auto deploy unless set it to do otherwise. So you wouldn't want to just plug it in to test it out that way. So yeah, it's some sort of sandbox or whatever else.
Yeah, indeed, and yeah. If you guys don't know at home, what you do with this thing is you put your payload on it, then you first make your payload, you encode your payload, you put it on the device. There's a little button inside, you click it. The moment you click it, it's armed, and you click it again, and it's just a normal USB stick, or you put your payloads on. So yeah, running it in a sandbox would be a great idea. Maybe just a little bit of a side question. I've heard a lot about juice checking recently. In my opinion, I'm not going to give my opinion yet, but I would love to hear your opinion on it.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So then one thing real quick too, actually. So the button that's on here, it actually only turns it on and off from arming mode by default. You can actually overwrite that programming. So the rubber ducky now comes with certain logic So you can make it so when you press the button, certain things happen, maybe stage 2 or whatever else.
So you
Now,
can deploy multi-stage payloads, basically.
right, and have some logic in your deployment in a quick, scalable way. Correct? Yeah. Now, so as far as the juice jacking, right? And if you guys don't know what that is, basically, juice jacking is where they were basically accusing hackers of putting, so again, this is the OMG plug, basically putting the same hardware that's in here inside of like charging ports at like airports and whatnot, and making them so they're malicious and warning people, hey, don't plug your phone in. Okay. It's so beyond utterly ridiculous. The whole thing. It's fucking ludicrous. The whole entire thing. For one, nobody is doing that under 24 surveillance of cameras. Like, they used airport terminals as the example, right? So that's on them, right? If you wanted to use something else, an example, you could have done that, but used airport terminals. Nobody is doing that under 24/7 surveillance. Like, it's just not happening. And then two, again, this is just a keyboard. That's all that it is. It's just a keyboard, right? So every single phone that you could possibly plug into it is different. The menus are different, right? All this can do is press certain keys in a certain order with certain pauses in between each one, right? So every phone is different. The timing is different. New phones are faster. The timing can be quicker. Older phones take forever, which means if it messes up one single keystroke in the order of 50 to 60 of them, the whole thing fails. And that's assuming it even knew the difference between iOS and Android. And then on top of that, it still has to have like power. It still has to have power and data pass through, because if they plug it in and their phone doesn't charge, they're going to unplug it and walk away. And they're going to be looking directly at their phone when they plug it in to see if it's charging, which is when the payload would activate. So they'd be watching it activate. And like phone payloads, they can take like 30, 40 seconds, a minute and a half. So are they just like plugging it in and looking at their phone to see if it's charging, and they see all that stuff happening and they do nothing? Sure, you could put a delay at the beginning, right? Or something like that. But that's a lot of assuming that they're not sitting there at the bench on their phone looking directly at it. Like, it's wild. The whole thing is blown out of proportion. And then you have to exfil the data, or someone has to come remove the device to get it off of it locally. One of the two. So like, the whole thing is fucking wild. Just absolutely wild.
Thank God.
Just
It's
garbage. Just fucking garbage.
Yeah, it's huge fear mongering, and the best reference I can find is some DEF CON. Like there was a booth in DEF CON years ago. I'm talking 10, 11 years ago, where they set up a booth. If you plugged in your phone, it would give you a message like, don't plug in your phone into random shit and stuff like that. But security was so much laxer these days on phones as well. And you didn't have that, oh yeah, I trust my computer thing. Like, that shit didn't happen, because that's what they're saying as well. It's not just that this is a keyboard. They're saying that this is going to hack your device by doing all kinds of crazy shit. But yeah, like you say, it's typing. It's literally emulating you.
I mean, like, if they ever pulled something, just to be clear, I guess I'm gonna cover the weird use case, I guess. Like, if we're just gonna be super honest or whatever it is, like, if the company who was behind building the terminals that went into the airport, and they partnered with a hacker group who installed them beforehand somehow, and do you see how like crazy that is? Like, I was trying to throw a bone there, but like, it's just, yeah, the whole thing is like, it's ludicrous. Like, there are ways to like, turn this into an implant instead of a USB, technically, sort of, but how do you get like data pass through and power with the implant on a terminal you don't have access to on the inside? That, well, you know what I mean? It's just the whole thing is wild, to be honest.
Yeah, and let's be honest, nobody's interested in your dick pics, so you're safe.
Right. That's the other thing. Like, average users really aren't targeted often. You know what I mean? I don't want to say it's not a thing, but like, that level of attack, you know what I mean? It's not that's a lot of effort to go for random hits on random people. Like, I don't know. Yeah. No. The whole thing's just ridiculous, to be honest.
Yeah, and I think we've also covered the next question quite well on what the limitations on rubber ducky and rubber ducky scripts are. Of course, it's a keyboard, like you said. It's you can't really do anything else than you would typing it in. Yeah, that's. I think that people have to be careful indeed with the fear mongering a little bit as well, because everybody sees us hackers as bad people already as is, and I don't think this is helping anybody.
Right. And like, I'm sure they didn't intend to do this, but they inadvertently, obviously, probably spiked their sales too. I'm just saying, like, just to add, just for the lulz on top.
That wouldn't be beyond them. Um, as a leader in the rubber ducky scripting community, what do you think is the most important aspect of collaboration and knowledge sharing amongst its members?
To be careful how I word this. I think you need to be wildly open but careful, right? Like, I will share every bit of knowledge that I have is what I feel in my heart, but then my brain is like, there's some of it you probably shouldn't share. So if you are going to withhold information, it should probably be for a decent reason, not just because, you know, I want to benefit off this or whatever it is. Now, of course, there are always exceptions, but for me, that's why, you know, I put so much effort into teaching everything that I display, and I break my teaching down in a way that even like newer people can learn from. I think knowledge should be shared like unconditionally, almost. And that condition being, you know, some of my payloads I just can't put out publicly. Like, sure, it would teach a lesson, but the people that would inadvertently use that for like actual, you know, not like my funny wallpaper change payloads or haha, I got your Wi-Fi password payloads, you know. So share everything, but be responsible.
I like that concept. I like that a lot. It's yeah, you have to be really careful who uses your technology, of course. I think it also happens a little bit with the same with OpenAI and their AI technology with ChatGPT, making it so much easier to scam and to even write
Correct.
rubber ducky scripts. If I want a script, if I
Yep.
have an idea, I just tell it to write me a script.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the thing that bothers me the most about that, just while we're kind of on that real quick, is that think of how many, you know, scam letters you have in your inbox that you just threw away because you opened it and immediately the grammar was just so fucking atrocious. You know what I mean? That you just laugh. Okay, well, it's sort of not funny anymore because those same people can just ask ChatGPT to write them something in English. Guess what? That grammar's not about to be fucked up anymore. You know what I mean? So like that's got some implications in itself. Just
Yeah, and the
random.
story that I often share is that I've been scammed almost out of like I had a very long no sleepless night streak with my kid, and she was like hyperactive, a little bit sick, everything. So I had 4 days of no sleep, and I got an email from my boss because it was sent from a company email as well. Those stupid idiots didn't secure their email servers, and it was a little bit in broken English, like, "Hey, I'm in a meeting. Can you send me $400 gift cards because I can't talk," and stuff like that. I went to my car before I had the idea of, "Hey, let me just call my boss. Does he really need these fucking gift cards?" But that was in broken English, like you say. If that was in perfect English, I wouldn't have doubted the email. I wouldn't have
There,
thought twice.
that's my point. Like, a lot of the times people sometimes don't give themselves enough credit, but sometimes you give yourselves too much credit. Like, you look at it and you see all that broken English, you're like, oh, I'd never fall for that. And I was like, yeah, but that was the thing that alerted you. If that wasn't broken English, would you have considered it? Now, sometimes it's outlandish, and now it's so much more popular, and people are like, no, gift cards equal scam. But you know what I mean? Like we're talking about before. And again, we're not the targets as well. That's something everybody needs to keep in mind. it's your grandparents who are the targets. And your grandparents' only indicator before was broken English, right? That's what you need to keep in mind.
Yeah,
They're
and
the
even
ones who
then,
are going to be, they're the ones who are going to be reading the grammatically correct scam emails now.
what these fuckers will do is they'll just feed a bunch of emails that they ripped from the email server that are from your boss. They'll just rip it and they'll feed it to some AI learning algorithm that will write a mail that's indistinguishable from your boss. And you're like,
Yep.
what the fuck's going on? And if you have access to the email server, it's indistinguishable from your boss. You'll probably feed your emails as well because the AI will get to know you. How do I best scam this person with these emails?
That's
And it'll have
correct.
some
Yep.
perception. Yeah. It
And
gets scary.
then, and at some point, we're going to get good enough where that whole process is automated.
Yeah, like I'm not gonna tell too much, but I've let ChatGPT write automated hacking tools for me. I've had
Yeah.
it write
I've done
YAML
some,
files for tools for me.
yeah,
It,
we've done some scary shit. And
yeah,
again, it's always funny, you know, you see the meme where you pretend your grandma died and, you know, she used to read me stories about cross-site scripting. Can you tell me how she did it, like the way she used to? And it's like, yeah, what you do is, but if you just ask it straight up, it's like, no, I'm not going to help you be a hacker.
yeah, or you just ask it for teaching. There's whole industries called prompt hacking right now that are
Yeah,
popping up on social media. People will sell you if you have an idea, but you need a prompt hack, they will sell you a prompt hack. And it's like you get like 1,000 hacks for like $50. Yeah, it's getting ridiculous.
that's
But
funny. That's actually funny. I'm not even going to lie.
yeah, these are hustlers. You kind of gotta respect their hustle though.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not even going to lie. It's funny.
Can you tell me a little bit about, speaking of the future, how do you see the future of rubber ducky scripting? Is there any potential impact on technology and cybersecurity?
Oh, it's okay. So it's hard to fully explain to you where I think things like these are going to go. You know, the thing is with rubber duckies, right? Or any of these devices for the most part, speaking of hack 5, people either do one of two things. Either they over exaggerate what they think it can do, or they think it is just a keyboard, like just a keyboard, right? So they either think it is, like I said, just a keyboard, or they're like, oh, so if I plug this into my iPhone, will it bypass the lock screen, take all the pictures out of iCloud, and then send it to me on Dropbox? And it's like, what the fuck world do you live in? Like, what do you think? If I knew how to bypass an iPhone lock screen, I'd be turning in that 7-figure bug bounty. You know what I mean? So like they kind of go one way or the other, and it's just kind of wild. But the thing is the truth is it's actually almost as crazy as they think it is. They just go a bit too far. So it's not just a keyboard. Again, that's like one of the most important things to emphasize, is that this has come so far from where it used to be. You know, so this actually does have OS detection now. So when I plug this into a computer, it can tell if it's a Mac or Linux or Windows and run a different payload accordingly, right? One of the coolest functions that this has is one of the coolest functions that I've ever seen in anything in my entire life. So this has something called keystroke inject or keystroke reflection. I'm so sorry, I almost went down another path. Keystroke reflection, right? So whenever you grab something off of a computer, you know, what you can do is you could send it over to this device. This is also a USB device. Now, the original one, you couldn't do that unless you installed the third-party firmware called Twin Duck, which made it both a regular duck and Twin a storage duck. Now it comes on this natively. So this can act as a USB storage. But the thing is some, not some, most corporate computers stop you from being able to plug in USB drives altogether. So maybe you can run the PowerShell command and you can get that information, but where are you going to send it to? They won't let you exfil over the network, and you can't send it to this device because they won't let you recognize a USB. What do you do? So this has something called keystroke reflection, like I said. So fun fact, if you didn't know this, the numlock, caps lock, and scroll lock on your keyboard, the lights on them are not controlled by the keyboard themselves. The lights are controlled by the computer. Your computer tells your keyboard whether or
Oh,
not those lights are on.
that's a
So
design flaw. Jesus.
yeah, so if I plug in a second keyboard into my computer, or you do, if you plug in a second keyboard, if you hit caps lock on one of your keyboards, it will light up on both keyboards because it universally sends that signal out to all HID devices. So what this does is it takes the data that you want to exfil, like maybe it's a Wi-Fi password, right? And it converts that. Basically, I'm going to dumb this down just to make this easy to explain. It basically converts it to Morse code using the numlock, scroll lock, and caps lock lights. So it just starts hitting those lights. It starts hitting those keys programmatically, but then those signals are then sent to here because it thinks this is a keyboard, and the signals go to all keyboards. So it takes those signals as they're coming in and then reinterprets it. So you can exfil data on computers that don't even allow a USB drive to be plugged in.
That's
Like,
insane.
it's using the caps lock, numlock, scroll lock as Morse code. And that's just one of the crazy features. Like they're like on fire right now, like with adding features, both the OMG devices and this rubber ducky. Like they're both going back and forth, just dropping updates for these things like every couple of days. It seems like adding new features every couple of days, literally. But yeah. The rubber ducky is both more and less than you think and more than you think, if that made sense based off of what I said before.
So yeah, we're not sponsored by Hack5, but if you have a hole burning in your pocket, I would recommend just getting the Elite bundle for I keep saying Bash Bunny, but I mean Rubber Ducky, of course, and just doing it. It's fucking awesome. It's fun. Instead of gaming, you should do this.
I actually am though. So if you guys do decide you want to buy that, use code I am Jacoby at checkout for a discount. Low key.
I am Jacoby, all together, right? All caps.
Yep. I don't think it's case sensitive actually. I could
I'll
be
put
wrong,
it
but
in
it should just be I am Jacoby. I appreciate you guys though.
I'm gonna put a link in the description as well. I appreciate you being here. It's this like I I've wanted a few devices in my life. Of course, the rubber ducky's one of them. The OMG cable's one of them. The Flipper Zero's now been one of them for a while, but those bitches are always sold out by fucking resellers. Incredible. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's hacking devices. I know that I'm never really going to use them in a real scenario, but it's just fun to play with and fun to see.
They're incredibly fun to play with, and they're really good for learning. And then the other thing about it is a lot of people have a hard time finding that right motivation, right? Like something has to excite you to a certain level. So just just throwing it out there, for example, people are like, oh, I tried to learn PowerShell. It was boring. I blah, blah, blah. Yeah, but did you try to learn PowerShell so you could use it with a rubber ducky? Did you try to make it so you could, magically change people's wallpapers right in front of them? I again, I almost did a spoiler, but I have a script that I can change your wallpaper in front of you just by saying a certain word. You know what I mean? So
Nice.
just funny little. It feels cool. It's funny. It's it gives you your little dopamine rush, and it makes learning PowerShell, which some people said they don't like. It's boring. It makes it easier. It makes it exciting and fun. So that's definitely another perk of it, whether you're trying to be a hacker or even like I've been getting close with the PowerShell community, and they're all sysadmins and stuff. They don't do any hacking, but they just they just brought me on a couple of days ago to do a talk and everything, and they were really intrigued by it. And a lot of them said, I've been doing PowerShell for a while. It's I don't want to say it's boring because it's what I like, but I haven't felt that excitement in a while. And I, watch what you're saying, and I was like, wow, I never knew you could use PowerShell like that. And it's finding different ways to bring that excitement back to whatever it is that you're trying to learn. And if you can do that, it just makes the process so much easier.
Yeah, I'm not gonna say too much, but I learned PowerShell because it can automate some tasks that are not really things you should be automating. Let me put it that way.
Right. Exactly. And again, it's so underrated as a hacker too, because people are so so dead set on just trying to build malware in other languages and then compile it to an exe and then try to sneak the exe on the system. And it's like PowerShell runs natively. Like you guys are trying to break down the door and they let me in. You know what I'm saying? Like it's a little challenging because it's not as robust of a language, but that makes it exciting for me. You know what I mean?
Awesome. I really appreciate it. I'm going to go over to some viewer questions as well. Somebody asked how your sniper training has helped you in your hacking. Can you comment on that, please?
Um, yeah. So, I guess one quick thing just to take away from that question. So he's basically asking how my training from one thing applied to how I'm doing this new thing. So before we jump into the specifics of that, one thing that's super important to note is no matter I don't want to okay, basically no matter what other skill you have, if you sit down and you think about that skill and you think about your new skill and you find a way to try to do some sort of cross application, you more than likely, you know, will find something. Now, with those skills particularly, like basically what I'm trying to say, it's a really confusing concept, I guess, but there's always some sort of practical application that can carry over to your new skill. And that's one of the coolest things, especially with things like programming, right? That can apply to so many things, whether you're a cook and you're learning how to program a new machine for a kitchen, or you're a carpenter and you're like, oh, how can I design this device or whatever, right? So the same knowledge applies over to everything. So there's always something that you can carry over, and that is just something that's important to take away from this conversation in general. But for me, um, those ones are a little bit wide in how they vary. But for me, sniper school, which was honestly, by the way, one of the coolest experiences of my entire life. It's a skill where you have to be so involved.
I can compare it to the rabbit hole, I think, right? Or like it's something where you're really fixated on hacking and hours fly by.
Right. So it develops a mindset. And I think it's the mindset that I guess going there that it developed. I think that's where the practical application that carried over is the way that you are trained to think while you're in school. Whether it be, target identification, which is something where they had us stand way out away from a field and they placed out a bunch of different objects and they told us what the objects were, and we had a grid of a picture of what's in front of us and we had to draw the objects on the grid and say where they were. So like that object identification. So it's a way of identifying patterns, just in general, I guess, pattern recognition with humans. So going through the training, even before the school and then during the school, kind of restructures your way of thinking and how you break things down. And the easy way to explain that to you guys or people like us, for programmers or people that have any sort of programming capacity, you know how it's different when we talk to people who aren't programmers, because as a programmer, you learn to structure things a certain way. You know what I mean? So the way that we carry on our conversations, the way we express our ideas, or the way that we break them down is different, because from a programming perspective, there's a certain structure that you do that they're just not exposed to. That same concept applied to sniper school, where they kind of break down your way of thinking and they rebuild it and they structure it in a way that make you adept at things like, again, target identification, range. So I know it's a really abstract concept to try to explain, but I guess the big thing that I carried over is the way that they trained me to think while I was there. And it was kind of a precursor to the same structure of programming, but again, from a different angle. So yeah. I know that's a little bit complicated, but
Oh, I love how you said that, because I think that pattern recognition is a very important point to pick up on as a hacker as well. Like if I hack an application, I don't hack an application, I profile it, I look for how it works, that my pattern, and everything that diverges from that pattern is important to me. Not that pattern itself, but the divergence from that
the
pattern.
divergence from the pattern. Exactly. Yep. And so that's something that we are trained to do, and that was the easiest one. There's a few other ones, but they're even more abstract. I think that was the easiest one for me to try to like visually, explain. But yeah. It would be the restructured thinking, the way I break things down, pattern recognition.
Awesome. I love that. I love that. The reason I love that so much is because of my autism, I'm better at recognizing those types of patterns, I think, or I don't know what it is, but I have some kind of different mindset than most people, where I'm extremely good at pattern recognition and what is not falling in that pattern mostly. That's the most important thing. So I love that you said that, but like I can imagine that there's much more than just that. It seems like a very complicated way of like it's a way of living, right? Being a sniper at a certain point.
Correct. The same way is once you get, far enough in as a programmer, right? You everywhere you go, you look at the way that things are programmed. Or for people that are like welders, this is a more visual one. People who are welders, every time they go in public, they're sitting there looking at every piece of metal, right? Like, how is it done? Oh, look at this, that wasn't done right, blah, blah, blah. Kind of converts over the same way.
Gotcha. Yeah. I love that comparison. I love it because everywhere I come now, I'm like, yeah, I could plug something in there. That's not safe. Yeah, better. How can I bypass that
Oh yeah.
security?
I just went to this place. I won't say where, but it was a place where they wouldn't let me have a phone in the building, but they let me like stand in front of their desk with the back of their computers turned to me with exposed USB ports, and I always have my plug in my pocket, always. So I couldn't bring a phone in, but I could plug that plug right in the back of your computer and go stand outside that window and have, unfettered access. It's wild. It's wild.
I can imagine. I can imagine. The last question that came in is, will you ever start working on your own attack platform with your own payload format? That's an interesting one.
Um, I don't, I don't, I don't want to say that I think it'll ever happen on an official capacity. More than likely, um, there's things that funny that's being asked. There's things that we're experimenting with, kind of in our Discord, just among a couple of us, but almost, it's almost more so just to do a little bit of our own experimentation just to see what's possible. And if anything, I would probably just like hit up Corbin, who's like one of the developers from Hack 5, and be like, hey, so we thought about this idea and we sort of tried to incorporate it. This is how far we got. Do you think this would be a good idea? Is this something we could, add to the rubber ducky? Would it be worthwhile? So it would probably go something along those lines. But I definitely am playing with a couple of different smaller devices right now that I try not to say too much, that do a few different things. That's mostly just for experimentation, just to see if we can further contribute to, like the, I guess, bad USB community in general.
I love that. I love that. Look forward to the ideas if they ever come up. All right, everybody. This was I am Jacoby. Thank you very much for your presence today. I really appreciate it. I would like to thank everybody for watching as well. Socials will be in the description below. And of course, also a coupon code thanks to Jacoby. Thank you very much. Really appreciate that.
I
Good to know.
appreciate. Oh, I appreciate you guys. Thank you for having me on. Let me talk with you. A lot of this stuff was really fun to bounce back and forth, and I kind of got a couple cool ideas just out of the little things that we were talking about that even I want to play with now. So it's awesome. I really appreciate you, and yeah, hope you guys have a good day, night, whatever time it is for you.
Yeah, and I'm just this is something stupid that I'm going to bring on now, but I really need to make this point. Recently, I released a lit. I keep releasing these lists of top 100, 100, 100, like 100 tools to use for web app hacking, for example. And I keep getting the same comments. All you need is one. All you need is one. Dude, get that out of your fucking head if you're watching, or do that, of course, because you can be in a restricted environment. People don't seem to understand this. I can do port scanning with Netcat. Why can I do port scanning with Netcat? Because sometimes I don't have Nmap and I need Netcat. So I've written a Netcat port scanning script that easily does a lot of the things that Nmap does for me, just in a different way, because I know how Nmap works, and I know Nmap, I know Mascan, I know like Recon NG port scanning. I know all of these different tools when it comes to just one topic. And it's important, I think, to stay open, to stay broad and general in that part.
Not to mention, like, it doesn't matter what it is, like, looking at something from a different angle is never a bad thing. Just like, period. You have no idea, like, you think that little skill or whatever it is, or whatever nook, you get down there in that nook and then you look at your problem from that angle and you might just see something. That's a real general statement, but
Yep. Yeah, just imagine log files. How boring is it to be able to read log files and to be able to navigate log stacks? Open Search with Kibana on top of it, with Grafana and shit like that. Who cares about it? But you have no idea how much stuff you can find in there. Like,
yeah.
people will write API keys to logs. They don't give a crap. Oh, it's internal. It's internal. No, you should never think that way. But yeah, I it's cool that we agree on that regard.
Oh yeah. People love even like, so people that are just semi-adept at PowerShell, they're like the biggest victims. They love storing things like API keys and shit directly in their PowerShell profile, which is stored in the profile variable in your console. So like literally a couple lines of regex and pointing it right at that file, and you have no idea how many keys have hypothetically been farmed.
Yeah, and it's the same for Git. Like, oh, it's just a repository that I'm checking it in. No,
Oh no. Okay, so yeah, I scraped there, and then the other thing that I used to do, and I'm not gonna lie, I quit. I stopped doing it. I used to scrape Reddit for Dropbox API tokens, and I regret it deeply, and I will never do it again. You don't want to see what's in a Reddit Dropbox. You just don't. It's way worse than.
I can somehow imagine. Yeah, I'll not go. I'll not go looking for it.
Yeah.
Also,
but it's wild. It's wild. It's wild how many they just put them out there, though. They're just sitting out there. You can scrape GitHub, fucking Reddit. It just, oh my god.
Yeah, if you know a bit of dorking, you can do so many cool things. It's
incredible. Yeah. Even just Google dorking, literally, that's disgusting. That's been a TikTok trend the last couple of days, actually.
Google dorking.
Which is weird because normally people are like exaggerating hacking shit on TikTok and just doing absolutely dumb shit. And for once, like, technically they're explaining it right, because it actually is that simple, right? Like, they're making videos that aren't like scammed or fake or whatever, because yeah.
I always tell this stupid joke, but it's true. I can teach your grandmother how to hack in 2 minutes. Just Google across it, scripting attack vector, go to page 5 of Google and click something open. It pops.
Yep. Yeah. Oh yeah. I love how you specifically said like page 5, because that is roughly right when the indexes stop giving a fuck.
Exactly.
That's funny.
I've been doing some cool stuff with like just looking for. What I do is I will tweet a lot of cross-site scripting attack vectors. If you've ever seen a tweet from me that's just XSS, you know that I'm testing retweeting websites like TweetDeck, for example. And I found some really cool websites like that. Sorry, it's a bit of a
that's funny
story, but I put some really cool stuff that way. and you can only report it through Open Bug Bounty that way because you know, they don't have a bounty program. But yeah, it's fun to do some naughty stuff. But then again, I didn't do anything bad. I'm just testing Twitter. All I'm doing is testing Twitter. If sites want to retweet that, that's their own problem.
I agree. I agree.
Yeah, like what I love about the bash. What I'm confusing it again. There you go. What I love so much about the love so much about the rubber ducky is that everybody can get into scripting. Basically, it's not difficult. If you look at the booklet, it's in total, it's not even numbered by pages, but it's like 20 chapters, and it goes pretty much everything you need to know to get started in it. So if you're ever interested in it, just pick up a rubber ducky and just get started. It's
Yeah, and so they actually, I was looking to see where mine is. I just realized I moved it, but they actually sell a full book as well, like a paper book, that is way more in depth, or you can basically get the same version of the book as a course. So Hack5 actually released a course where they went over the Ducky script, and yeah, it's definitely a good way to jump into it. And like you said, it's a good way to get started. You know, like we were saying earlier, it's hard when people are getting started because it can feel boring. And if you don't feel like that excitement, you're like, oh, this just isn't for me. But again, you know, if you're using it for a Ducky script, it's a way to get those dopamine hits earlier on to, you know, keep you motivated and learning more.
definitely, I think that's some good advice for people wanting to get into this field. Like, go for some small wins, go for some dopamine hits, because it sounds stupid, but that's what hacking is all about for me, is those dopamine hits. Like, oh yeah, I pwned you, bitch.
Yeah. I mean, that's what it comes down to. Whatever it is, you finally get that thing to work, get that new UAC bypass that took forever. Got the registry to do the thing. I love when you get the registry to do the thing. That's probably one of my favorites.